At 9 a.m. in the morning, the internet disappears. Not slows down, not one website. The entire public internet is simply gone. Your phone still has a signal, your lights are still on, but nothing loads. For the first 5 minutes, nobody panics. Everyone performs the same highly technical repair. They turn the router off, wait 10 seconds, and turn it back on. Nothing. The router is innocent. The outage is everywhere. No messages, no maps, no cloud files, no online banking, and the card terminal at the coffee shop has just stopped cooperating. This is no longer an inconvenience. The clock has started. The first hour would feel strangely ordinary. People would still have electricity. Downloaded music would still play. Offline games would work. Files stored directly on your computer would still exist. Your refrigerator would not suddenly resign, but anything that needs a remote server would begin failing. Email, streaming, social media, cloud software, online stores, even some smart devices would stop doing remarkably simple things because they could no longer contact their manufacturer. A smart light bulb might suddenly need permission from a server hundreds of kilometers away before allowing you to see your own kitchen. And typing a familiar website address would not help if the systems that translate names into network addresses were unavailable. DNS acts like the internet's address book. Without working naming and routing systems, knowing where you want to go does not mean your data can get there. At first, most people would assume the outage was temporary. They would refresh pages, restart phones, move closer to the router, and stare at one another as though someone in the room had broken the internet personally. By lunchtime, offices would discover how many jobs quietly depend on a browser tab. Shared documents would be unavailable. Video meetings would disappear. Customer databases might be unreachable. Cloud-based software would stop responding. Employees would begin asking an ancient question: does anyone have a paper copy? Some internal company networks would continue working. A factory does not necessarily need the public internet for every machine. A hospital does not instantly lose every local system. Organizations that depend on remote cloud platforms, centralized authentication, suppliers, or external support would begin losing important functions. And then people would try to call each other. Traditional voice calls and SMS might continue in some networks, but modern mobile systems also depend heavily on digital infrastructure. If millions of people all call at once, overloaded networks would quickly become unreliable. Everyone trying to use the backup at the same time is a very efficient way to discover that the backup has limits. The first major public shock would probably happen at the checkout. Many card transactions require communication between the shop, payment processor, bank, and card network. Some terminals can authorize limited transactions offline, others cannot. So one store might still accept your card while the next one displays the least helpful sentence in modern commerce. Transaction declined. Cash would suddenly become extremely popular. DMEs, however, could face their own connection problems. Banks would still possess account records. Your money would not magically disappear, but accessing it and confirming transactions would become much harder. Travel would become confusing too. Airplanes would not fall from the sky because the internet vanished. Pilots and aircraft used dedicated systems, procedures, and radio communication. But booking, check-in, crew scheduling, passenger information, hotel reservations, ride services, and logistics platforms would begin failing. The aircraft may be ready. The passenger list may not be. By the end of the first day, people would stop treating the outage as a technical annoyance. They would begin asking a much more serious question: how long can modern life continue like this? By the second day, the problem would move from screens to shelves, not because the world suddenly ran out of food, because modern supply chains depend on constant information. Warehouses need orders. Drivers need routes. Stores need inventory updates. Suppliers need to know what to send and where to send it. Some businesses would return to phones, radio, printed schedules, and handwritten records. That would keep part of the system moving. But manual work is slower. It makes more mistakes. And it becomes difficult when the person you need to contact is also trying to contact everyone else. Delivery companies would still have trucks. Ports would still have cranes. Warehouses would still contain goods. The problem would be coordination. The internet does not physically carry a container. It carries the information that tells thousands of people which container must move next. Imagine a terminal with thousands of containers, dozens of trucks, ships waiting, and no reliable digital instructions. The machinery still exists, the workers still exist, but the invisible system telling everyone what to do next has disappeared. That is when the outage begins to feel physical. By the fourth day, governments and major companies would establish emergency communication channels, satellite links, private networks, radio systems, dedicated connections, physical delivery of data. The internet might be gone, but communication itself would not disappear. It would become slower, narrower, and more expensive. Emergency services would prioritize essential traffic. Hospitals, utilities, transport operators, and public agencies often plan for communication failures. But backup systems are not magical replacements for normal life. They are designed to preserve the most important functions, not recreate the full internet for billions of people. People would also begin adapting socially. Meetings would happen in person. Local notice boards would return. Radio and television would become more important. Someone would print directions. Someone else would discover they had lived 3 years in the same building without learning a neighbor's name. There would also be panic buying in some places. Rumors would travel without easy verification. And that combination is dangerous. When reliable information becomes scarce, people do not stop communicating. They fill the silence themselves. One person says the banks will reopen tomorrow. Another says the outage will last a month. A third person has a cousin who supposedly knows someone in government. By the time the story reaches the fifth person, the moon may be involved. After 7 days, civilization would still exist. Power stations would not all be dark. Hospitals would not all be closed. Food would not have vanished. But normal modern life would be badly damaged. The economic losses would be enormous. Millions of businesses would be unable to sell normally. International coordination would slow. Financial markets could suspend activity. Factories could lack instructions, components, or confirmation from suppliers. Every hour of uncertainty would make planning harder. The strangest part is that most physical objects would still be there. The trucks, the food, the computers, the money records, the workers. What would be missing is the fast flow of information connecting them. The world would not look destroyed. It would look delayed, confused, and covered in paperwork. We often imagine the internet as a collection of websites, but websites are only the visible surface. Underneath them is a global coordination system. It tells machines where to send data. It confirms identities. It synchronizes records. It connects buyers, sellers, workers, vehicles, banks, hospitals, and governments. That is why losing the internet for 7 days would not send humanity back to the Stone Age. It would send us back to paperwork, which, depending on the form, may feel worse. The internet is not the electricity powering modern civilization. It is closer to its nervous system. Remove it, and the body still exists. The heart still beats, but its parts can no longer coordinate properly. So the next time your connection disappears for 30 seconds, you may still restart the router. That is tradition. But remember what that little box connects you to. Not just videos, not just messages. A large part of the system keeping modern life synchronized. And after 7 days offline, humanity would survive. But by day 8, the person who repairs the internet will be the most popular human alive. People would celebrate. Businesses would reopen. Messages would begin arriving. And somewhere, after 1 full week without internet, someone would immediately use it to argue with a stranger. Because some systems recover faster than others.